Hmm. Hi Shashwat. Hi everyone. Welcome to another live by Redesign. Great. So we're just going to let some more people join us before we start this live session. Uh, and today we have somebody really special, somebody really important, someone that I really wanted to interview for a very long time, and we've got her time today. So I'm really excited. We have some people live now, but we're just going to wait for another few people to join. In the meantime, because I think people will be able to watch this live even after we have finished this session. I'm just going to give you guys a brief of who we have. Um, so we have Rita Jairath ma'am. She is one of my idols for fitness, for life mantras, and for a lot of other things that we'll be talking about very soon. She is an IFBB pro athlete, which means that she is an International Federation of Bodybuilding pro athlete, which is a big deal. I'm trying to pin a comment here so that you guys can see who we are taking live today. She is also a World Peace Ambassador. She's a writer, she's a columnist, a model, a dancer, and an entrepreneur. So she's a lot of things. She's also uh, bought products from Redesign, which we're very proud of, which was a lot of fun. So today we are getting to pick her brain about her journey because it's backstage, and we talk about the journey of these amazing people and how they came about doing what they do. Her journey has taken her from New York to Vegas to Madrid, Spain, Prague, Czech Republic, everywhere. I mean, just before doing this session, she was training fitness trainers on macronutrients, so you can imagine the kind of expert that this person is. So, without much ado, I think I'm going to take her live here, and eventually, when more people join, we're going to ask her some interesting questions. And if you guys feel there are a lot of questions you want to ask, please feel free. We'd be happy to pass them on to her. Hi, ma'am.
Hi, good to see you.
How are you? Good to see you too. Finally, we've got you on our Insta Live. I couldn't be more excited to do this session.
Yes, yes, I'm very excited and it's very,
Great,
very special. Yes,
great. So, ma'am, Redesign, you know about us, and our
yes,
audience is from the age group of 22 to 40, all young artists, designers, and a lot of creative people, a lot of people who are trying to follow their passion. And I think uh, you're going to be a huge role model for these people when we introduce you to them. And I hope a lot of people join us and watch this episode also. So I've tried to give sort of an introduction from my understanding. Would you please take a few minutes and tell us about you and your journey?
you've already told, mentioned who I am, and that goes without saying that I'm into bodybuilding. But that's, actually big part of my life. Initially, I was, I passed out of school in college in 80s. So that was long back. And so, we didn't have gyms. So I was actually one of the first few women who started bodybuilding. And how I
Oh,
got into it was so very different and in a very unconventional way. My son was already 15 years old in 2004. He was already 15 years old, and so he wanted to go to the gym. And
okay.
he's actually, unfortunately, he's an autistic child, and he needed help from me. He couldn't have managed it on his own for sure. And in those days, when I was younger, then we had the Hema Malini and Dharmender. We were not having the muscular bodies like Hrithik and Tiger Shroffs they
Yeah.
do in these days. And so, and of course, he needed help, and he had all his psychiatric disorder and all the trouble that he was facing. So as a mother, I had to accompany him, and I went to the gym. And then a lot of people were telling me that women should not be doing weight training. Why are you doing that? And this child cannot do it. And so, what happens, you tell a woman to that she cannot do something, and then you just got to watch her, so she will go ahead doing the very same thing. And in those days, I was I had to prove myself that women can do weight training. So I needed to study. I did my education in, body, in fitness and life sciences all over again. And I did my postgraduate diploma from the Tamil Nadu University. I did my courses, diplomas and certifications from US. And then finally, in India, the women who were even allowed to compete were kind of just judged by one criteria as the level of muscularity. They didn't have, a
Oh,
structure and the mandatory poses that are there now in the international federations, the way it is presented on the world standards. So I had to go abroad, and I trained with very legendary bodybuilders like Dennis James and Fakhri Mubarak and Shannon Day, who were doing it all at the Olympia level. So
yeah.
it was kind of a blessing in disguise that since we didn't have in India, and I was forced to travel there. And so, I happened to just learn from the best, and I competed in countries abroad, and that is how
Yeah.
I got bodybuilding. So it was, long after my son had grown older also. He's now 30 years old. So I'm
Wow, that's amazing. So
uh,
almost 16 years in the journey of bodybuilding, ma'am, right? Almost 16 years.
yes, yes. The difference is that,
Wow, that's amazing. And you've picked up pursuits on the way. Yeah,
uh, you, your voice is cracking.
yeah, ma'am. I'm just getting the same network issue. But yeah, sorry, you were saying.
No, you ask your question again, please, because I didn't
Yeah,
hear
I was
it completely.
saying that was 16 years ago when you started your journey, and we're in 2020 today, and you've also picked up multiple pursuits on the way of classical dance. So was that part of your journey before you started bodybuilding, or was that
No,
something that
when
came along the way?
child, when I was very young, I was, my father was in the Air Force, and he used to, he was in charge of education of pilots in the flying instructor school in Chennai. So
Okay.
because I was in the Air Force in Chennai, Bharatanatyam was something which everybody was doing. And I tried a lot, but I have had kind of a difficult journey. My mother had schizophrenia, and she was very sick. So once my father retired, I pursued Bharatanatyam, but I had to leave it. So it was my dream in my life to complete my Arangetram and make it a full-fledged journey. So I got into bodybuilding because of my son, and because he had this psychiatric disorder. So it was about 20 years that I did nothing for myself, and I had so many incomplete dreams. So I think for youngsters, I must say one thing, that you should value the presence of life, and the time that you have. It is so precious, because you don't have enough time later, and then you got to do it all together like me. But I won't let this life go waste. I have to do whatever I was destined to do. And so I restarted it, and now I'm doing it with a very, very good teacher. And so God gives it back to you. I have a very good teacher at the Tamil Nadu Bhavan. And so although I'm from Punjab, but I'm just freaking out on that. And I'm so happy. I'm so blessed that, at this age, I'm still able to pursue it. But so all the things that I had left behind, academics, I'm doing everything together again. So that is something I would like to tell the younger generation, that time doesn't come back. So whatever you want to
Yeah.
do, whatever is happening, just let it happen and do it.
That's really valuable, ma'am, because I can't even imagine, because I read through the article in your bio, and I was moved to say the least, because at this point, and I'm 28. Um, the kind of pressures that we have in college and with career, and हम लोग उसी से परेशान हो जाते हैं that this is too much to take and whatnot. So this was going to be a personal question as well as for everybody who is right now watching and is part of Redesign, because they're all artists. They all want to follow their passion and follow something in the creative industry. So how to manage mental stress? How did you get through it? Like, what was going on in your mind in that time?
Okay, I'll tell you two things. The first thing is that when I was a child, since the time I was born, my mother was very sick. She used to get hallucinations and she used to respond to them, and we had no life at all. So, my whole young age, by young age, I mean the childhood and teenage. And then that passed, just with the dream of having a normal family sometime in my life. So later on, when my son had autism, so I had actually nothing to look forward to. And I really took it upon myself that this is a challenge that I need to conquer. And so a lot of doctors said that he will not be able to speak, but I was all out with therapeutic modalities and studying about that, and that taught me a lot of life lessons. Now, giving up 20 years of my life and becoming semi dependent on somebody because I had to look after my son, it comes with a lot of humiliation that you need to go through in the society, with a special child, with a special mother, and then the financial repercussions of that. So I knew that deep inside me, I had that fire right from the beginning, that I have the drive to excel, and I did not let that die. I kept that dream like a dormant volcano. That when the time comes, I'm going to let it out, and I will not go away. I will try till the end of my life. There's so many things that we don't have control over. So actually, just a couple of days back, I had a kind of a discussion, not an argument really, with a very, very senior army officer. He's a major general, and I really respect him a lot. But what happened was that he said that he's going to give an inspirational talk that you should never surrender. And army people don't do. As I know, my father is, a defense officer. I mean, he
Yeah,
was a defense officer. They never do. They will die before this. They will never surrender. You've seen the army thing that happened, in
yeah,
Galwan. So they will give their lives, but they don't surrender. That's one thing they'll never do. But in life, what I spoke about surrender is that you need to surrender before the will of God. There are certain things that you don't have control over, and you keep doing your work with a parallel sense of detachment. You have to detach yourself from the outcome of your work. You may or you may not get the result that you desire, because that is not in your control, and actually that is the essence of Bhagavad Gita. So when I
yeah,
told him this, yeah, I told him that actually when the army officers say that we don't surrender, I said so many people, unfortunately, they were martyred, they died, but they did not give up, but they cannot decide the result. The result was still decided, that their lives went away. So you cannot attach yourself to the result. So my process is that I must pursue my journey. So all the artists who think that whether we'll be able to reach those heights, that is destiny that you do not have control over. There is politics in every field, you name it and you have it. Even if in a small little tiny household you have politics, even husband and wife, and even children and mothers and children, there's politics everywhere. So you don't have control over the minds of other people and the lifestyles, situations, and the now, because man proposes and God disposes. We have all had so many plans, but a little virus messed it all for all of us. So
right.
you say that you kind of, if you want to make God laugh, then you just tell God your future plans, and then God will laugh, have a good laugh. So I say that don't attach yourself to the outcome. The moment you have detached yourself from the result, that whether you're going to make it big or not, and you are focusing on the process and the journey of pursuing that career, the journey of improving, and everyday baby steps as an artist, when you're improvising on whatever art, whether it is dance or whether it's painting or whether it's poetry, So the journey of improvising, the journey of getting more and more people in your caravan, that is the beauty of the entire process of that art. So that is one thing that should really motivate everybody, because even if I'm on day one today, my focus should be that I am going to pursue it whatsoever, even if I'm going to pursue it for 1 day, 2 day, whether I make it big, so that your enjoyment will start from day one, that I'm improving, that the
Right.
graph is up. So that is enough. You should be happy because you're able to do it. Forget about winning, losing, or reaching. The very fact that you're able to pursue and do it and enjoy the process of being in that art, that should be the biggest motivator. And the second, my journey is no longer personal. There's somebody who's writing a very nice book on me. In fact, I am just redoing. We are doing the proofreading now, so
Oh,
you'll see
how
that.
amazing.
Yes, yeah, that's going to be good, and eventually you'll see a lot more of that. So it's not going to remain private. I tell you, confess one thing, that for many years I did not talk about my son. I kept it a secret, and a lot of people even didn't know that I have a son in the first place. Fortunately, fitness pursuits keep us slightly younger than we actually are in our
Yes.
chronological age. So, a lot of people didn't know about who I am, where I am, what's my background. And it was one fine day when, he's learning classical music. And I took him
Wow.
out for a performance where there were children, special children. And, that was a foundation working for such children. And I was sure that nobody will make fun of him or tease him or anything like that. And when I took him there and finally he sang a song, I got, a lot of mothers approaching me. They wanted me to talk about how I even manage that much, because for autistic children, they're not even vocal, they don't even speak. And he's singing, he's doing classical music now. And I thought that it's not fair to keep silent
Yes.
about it. Lot of mothers, they need me to go and speak out, and so I got associated with a few organizations. In fact, there is one organization by the name of Luani in UK, and
Okay.
so I'll be working very closely with them and bringing it all to India. So I really want that in India there should be laws for special children who are when the parents are not there. If I'm not worried till the time I'm alive, I keep myself fit so that I can serve my family till the end of my life. But once I'm not there, it's a harsh world, and for that we need laws. All the laws are in the favor of physically handicapped people, and but the mentally sick people, they cannot think. Anybody can abuse them, put them in mental
Right.
hospitals, do any damage to them, and so we need to take care of that part. So I'm really looking forward to bringing about such changes now in the society.
Ma'am, I am uh I have literally no words because there was in what you just said. First of all, I'm really looking forward to the book because I'm sure there is so much that I am going to pick your brains on in this 45-minute session, but there's so much that I'll be able to read and go through the journey. And just the essence of what you said, because this is something that we are all going through in duration of corona, and all the stress that is mounting up in people's lives because of lack of pursuit, and so much of conversation around mental health, which has become a center topic which was sort of ignored. And I'm so inspired, to say the least, of your strength and courage to have that conversation with people, and bring that to the center light, that these conversations need to happen, and to normalize the requirement, the necessity of a conversation in the first place, because then it will probably be addressed. But like you said, about Gita, and the lessons that come from it, about declaring what you want from the universe and letting it go out there, and still doing your thing every day, just like you do reps when you're following a fitness schedule, right? I've just gotten into it. We've both gotten into it. Me and Smriti have gotten into it some time back, and just hearing that from you is so reassuring. I can't even tell you. So thank you so much for saying that. Um, I really have a question, and this is a personal question I wanted to ask you. I'm sure a lot of people are going to have this. So when you're following your journey and you're through to some point, right? And there are some results that you see, some you're not able to see, and it's okay because you're enjoying the process. But then a fear of failure steps in sometimes. Sometimes these mini failures stop you from pursuing your goal further, and that sort of becomes a hindrance to the rhythm that you know had just got because of the effort that you were putting in. So you've got tremendous experience to tell us how to deal with that. So how do we deal with that?
No, when I went to train with Dennis James, my business partner told me that yes, you must train with him because he's seen the maximum number of failures. And okay, I will confess one thing. This is I'm not really publishing too much about it, but there's a film being made on me. Now,
Oh,
now there were other bodybuilders, on whom films and sports person, on whom films have been proposed actually. But now what happens is that I spoke to that person, and there's so many bodybuilders and films are being made on them. Where does my film stand? And so on. And the male bodybuilders are more popular, and they have done all their social media marketing. I haven't done that. I'm just the way I am. So he said, no, we don't want success stories. We want failure stories. And I have seen more failures than successes. And I'm very proud of it because the more failures you see, you will know that this doesn't work. And by the end of your career, you know how to move around. So a lot of
right,
people may take undue advantage of you. They may hurt you, and you may be just very, very clear and straight. But you keep on building your credibility over a period of time. You keep on demonstrating your strength and your ability and your resilience. But what happens is that when you've seen a lot of failures, you know that I am not doing it for the result. I'm doing it for the process of being able to do it. And now, when it
yeah,
comes to bodybuilding, suppose there's bodybuilding, I go for a competition. I have control over doing my best. I can perform my best. But I don't know which athlete will come from which country. There may be athletes from Europe, and they may have tremendous genetics and the best of gyms and their resources and so on. And they for them, they don't have to travel. They don't have to spend that much of
right,
money. They all the people in the local federations, they may have everything in their favor. So I'm not going to win every time. I may win, like in Europe. They at that time when I was competing, it was all nearly a rule. My coach from Kuwait, Ahmed Askar, he actually told me that they will not let people who are not from this continent, non-Europeans, they'll not let them win it.
win.
He's
Wow,
He's, Ahmed Askar is training all the Olympia champions. He trains Big Ramy. He was training all the, biggest people. So, you know, uh, they had to, sort of, I'm sorry, I'll have to
no,
move
no
this.
problem.
Yeah. So that is why he told me that the Europeans will not let Indians win, so you'll have to just compromise here. So I used to tell body training building athletes, when they fail, that we have learned how to exercise, we have learned how to maintain a healthy lifestyle, we have learned form, technique. And even if a woman goes and mops the floor in the kitchen, in her home, she's going to sit down with the correct stance. When she's going to bend, she's not going to have a kyphosis in her erector spinae. She's going to bend down engaging her glutes muscle, because that's so much in the muscle memory. And
Right,
any athlete in the world, no matter what sport it is, they have a very short shelf life. They're going to compete for, say, 8 to 10 years. And
okay,
no matter what, they won't compete lifelong. But when you get the pictures, experience, training, and conditioning of your mind, getting over failures and learning to rise up again, that will manifest itself into every aspect of your life. And so failures is a beautiful thing to happen. How you rise up after that and how you utilize it to do so many, like once I left bodybuilding, I was able to use the strength I got from bodybuilding to do my Bharatnatyam. Whatever I learned in theory, I'm taking classes. I'm now an international judge. So I'm still associated with the international league. And I well, whatever your trophies and medals are, they will keep lying somewhere in a box or somewhere in the drawing room, like they will just lie there. What you really get out of this is the camaraderie that you have developed backstage, the group of
Yes.
friends, the relationships, and that will help you at every step of your life, the respect that you have earned. So failures are something which teach you so much about life, and they make you a better human being. They make you more compassionate. They don't let arrogance steep in. A lot of people who have won Mr. Arnold Classic or Amateur Olympia, oh my God, they are so arrogant. They think they are huge celebrities and some superior being. But if you have had even 2 or 3 failures, you will be a good, kind human being, and you know that you have failed in spite of working hard, in spite of being very good. So having to fail is a beautiful thing. I think you should be very proud if you fail many times.
Got it. Got it. Thank you so much for validating that, first of all, because um, for everyone who's watching and for me specifically at this point in time when we're trying to, give a platform for people who are trying to follow their passion, and in doing that, we are following our passion. Uh, there is so many mistakes that we make, and coming from you, it's huge. Um, I think I must say it's it puts me at peace to know that it's okay to fail. Although, you read all these books and they say that, it's okay to fail and, count your failures and everything, but you've been through it. And
Yeah,
thank you
every
so much
single
for
day
doing that.
I live it hard way. But the journey teaches you so much. What happens is, you accumulate. Even if you're failing, you have accumulated knowledge. And then, you are kind of recycling that. And then you're reusing that, you're applying that. And then you do better in something else. So, at the end, every little of success, failure, combination stories, they accumulate. If you don't give up, at the end you will be somewhere. So yes, that goes without saying.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I mean, this is also something we would want to know, because I was reading a column that you had written for Crunch magazine, and the title was "Habits Decide Your Goal," and about maintaining habits. A beautiful article. There was so much of value to take away from it. Just wanted
I'm so
you to
happy.
speak about that.
I'm so happy because I see, a lot of people, they just see pictures in the magazines. And in fact, one of the shows, everybody was talking, my photo was in the magazine. I said, why don't you read? There is so much we have to read. And I was speaking to a lady in UK recently, and she was saying that, you should write a book, because the magazines, probably nobody reads the articles, and at the end of the month they put them aside. And so whatever you have, you should be able to write a book and publish that. Also, it will stay with you. The magazines won't stay with you. And I'm going to
Right.
tell her about it, because she's in UK. Yeah, she was telling me, you write a book, we'll publish it in the UK Parliament. But I'm going to tell her about you. That somebody read my article. I'm elated.
How sweet.
God, wow. Yeah.
How sweet, ma'am. So, oh God, I mean, I'm an avid reader. I was trying to find more columns that you had written, and because just in the first two paragraphs, it was so evident that it's coming from so much in the personal journey that has happened. It's real wisdom from experience, which is the value for that is can't be put in the value of a book or the cost you pay for a magazine. It's just it's a life lesson to take away, and it stays with you. So. I was reading a book called Atomic Habits, very popular right now in the bestsellers, and then I read your article also. So I just wanted to ask you about habit development, and because I think that it's a mix of science and art in bodybuilding and the discipline that goes behind, obviously. So, what are your thoughts on that, and how do people like us who are youngsters, probably starting out, start to develop like concrete habits over time?
See, bodybuilding, if you leave competitive bodybuilding aside, bodybuilding is an all-encompassing art. So it involves, even physics, biochemistry, kinesiology, music, rhythm, sports psychology, because you're conditioning your mind to do something, in a very repetitive way, and get sore again, get tired again, and then recuperate and achieve super compensation and hypertrophy. So you're growing every day with progressive overload. So it's actually a very, very beautiful science. You are creating a piece of art out of a human body. That is something. You see the Greek gods. You're actually sculpting yourself. So when you sculpt yourself,
Yeah.
you're chiseling yourself. You're really cutting down yourself. So it's sometimes a painful journey, and sometimes it's very exhausting and can cause fatigue and so on. So when you're sore, you still wake up and you're continuing to do. So that it in itself is a huge life teacher. Uh,
Yeah.
so the desire, how you can maintain is that it has to be from deep within you. You need to prioritize what is it that you really want. Suppose you're having a meal with 10 people, and you're supposed to eat those macros which are cooked in a very bland way, just with steam, and in such a way that it will not be very delectable, obviously. But and everybody is having all the cuisine in the world, but it is what you want. But your relationship with the food, whether it is you are looking at the carbohydrates, proteins, and fats and minerals and so on, to be able to perform and explore your potentials to the fullest, to perform your life activities. Is it that you want, or you just want the the pleasure, the sensory pleasures that you're looking for? So
Mm.
one of the ways to decide is how you feel after you eat, after 20-30 minutes after you eat. Do you feel strong, or do you feel weak, or you're not getting into a anorexic or bulimia, or any eating disorder, or you're detraining yourself in a certain way? So you have to listen to your inner self. And when they say a champion is a person who gets up and does things when he doesn't feel like. Even when you don't feel like, you still have to go and do it. What happens in bodybuilding is you got to take off all your clothes and go on the stage, and you are going to be judged and be watched by thousands of people. There is no scope for a lie there. That is why I say that when they talk about bikini in women, I say it's the most sacred dress, because there is no scope for cheating. Every single repetition and every single gram of macronutrient that you've had is counted and accounted for. You have been tired, you have exercised and trained even when you didn't feel like, because the idea, the fear of failure is sometimes positive also, because there are people who are looking up to you, and you may go there, and people will say, oh, this is what it was just a big hype. She has this, she has a muscle imbalance, and she had fat on her belly, and cellulite on her thighs and her hamstring. So fearing all that will make you do it, because
Right.
that at the end you have to go to the stage without your clothes, and there is no scope for a lie there. So that in itself becomes a motivation. And also, when you go to the gym, I see a lot of people who are trained just to impress those 3 4 people around you. If you're a bodybuilder who is competing, your target should be the larger stage, that when you're going to get a medal for your country, that is something that should motivate you. Your goals should be big, your dreams should be big, irrespective of failure. Then your journey is big, and in the journey,
Right.
whatever you get is going to be bigger than those impressing those few people, number of people around you, which can be very, very counterproductive.
Got it. Ma'am, I want actually, you just spoke about one of the times when you win for your country, and I wanted you to take a trip back the memory lane to one of the first times when you achieved that, and what was that feeling like, or what was that experience, if you could share, and how that might have changed the whole dynamic for you to pursue your passion.
Oh yes, that has happened many times, by God's grace. Although I have failed, I have won also. But before that, I would say that even when I failed, there was this lady Jayan Tana who was very close to Arnold, and there was a competition in Barcelona where I represented India, and I really didn't win anything. And she came up to me and said that everybody out there was saying, "Oh, that lady from India is excellent. She has not won, but we didn't even expect." A woman from India to come and do a bodybuilding competition in Europe, so that was something which she said that you made a mark, you made a change, and so you are a champion for us. That is one thing which really made me positive, and I can never forget that. The second thing is that when you actually win, in the initial years when I won competition representing India, I used to travel all alone. There was nobody from India. Even getting a federation letter, on ground reality was like a huge thing.
Oh
No
God.
objection. And there was a lot of suppression of athletes or to compete abroad, and so it was very, very, very challenging time for me. So even to go on stage and compete there was huge. So when I won a medal, there was literally nobody clapping for me, and that's one of the reasons I don't even have
Oh
many photographs. I don't have videos. So just I have
God.
two or three videos, and that is. But in those days, we didn't have social media, to be very honest, and not
Right,
as
ma'am.
active
What
as
year
it is
was
today.
that? Which year was this?
Right from 2004, 5 to about, my last competition was in 2018 when I won my pro card, and that's the only competition where I have a video. So my target used to be completely on winning the medal and the journey. So that is one of the mistakes I have made, and I really tell everybody now: make sure that you have a record of everything, because one day it's going to end, and that is why photographs and videos are so precious. So in our days we used to have that annual class photo, black and white, with the umbrella and the camera. If your eyes are closed, then you're gone. Your eyes are going to be closed forever in that black and white picture. And we used to wait for
Do that.
days that the photograph would come. So I didn't kind of pay attention to that, and that is why now I see athletes who come for 6 months and who have not done much, but they have a huge sort of following. But the older athletes, who really worked hard in their times, have not been able to make it that big. But it's fine. I mean, like, I'm still happy. The people in the fraternity, really, I'm overwhelmed by the kind of love I get from everybody. That's fine. But when it comes to winning, yes, I don't have very many videos. But yes, when the national anthem is played, it's absolutely
Oh,
ecstasy.
that.
It's ecstasy. I literally get into tears, and because I've been through the experience, this would be interesting for you. As a judge, I stand, and now, because I'm an international judge, and so there are people who from, there was a girl from Tunisia who won, or from some other country. When they win, I get to know the country later, but when their national anthem is played and I am a judge, I've given them the medal, start crying when their national anthem is
Oh,
played.
so sweet.
So because I know the feeling, human beings are same everywhere. So I know get emotional on stage, and then I also get very emotional on stage because I've been through it over, and I've been through it all by myself, all alone. So when I was winning a medal for country, like in Arnold Classic, I won it, and then I just, gathered my things and I came back to my hotel room. There was nobody to clap for me, and I didn't have a picture. So
Oh
with great
God.
difficulty, I was to go down the stage, tell somebody, click a picture for me, and then come back and post that. And the only people who would know it is the few people on Facebook. But it's fine. It comes back.
I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine, ma'am, because right now when people go out on Saturday nights, they take more pictures, I think, than when you've taken at the end of your journey.
Yes,
It's
yes, yes.
it's
I
unimaginable.
miss out
It's
on that.
But no worries, ma'am. I think it's something that will come through the book and
Yes.
also with the movie that I'm going to be promoting all out. I can't wait for that to get made. If there is anything that we can do to share that journey, because this is something that we talk about a lot. When
Yeah.
we talked about doing an interview with you, that the generation just before us who was not that media friendly,
Yes.
Obviously with the lack of technology, because it wasn't there, you didn't have handheld, phones where you could take
Yeah.
pictures. But that still being said, coming back with a medal down the stage and not having anybody there, I don't know, I would have fallen into a pool of tears. It's insane.
Yeah, I like, and then at home, I have my son who wouldn't understand what a medal is. So it was a very lonely journey, but it's fine. I'm sure you get it back. And that is something also which must be a very inspiring thing for the youngsters, that you get a medal and then you wait for 15, 20 years, and then if your journey has been genuine, people will look up to you, and then you get the credit of that medal after 20 years. So it's fine, it comes back. That
It's
faith should
coming.
be there.
It's coming, man. It's on its
Yeah.
way. I can just feel it coming on the way because I so
Yeah.
want this. I'm probably trying to imagine right now as you're speaking what that time might have been like. But I'd love to see that be reenacted at the time of the movie.
Yes. Yes.
Ma'am, do you write do you write a journal? Because I think you write columns and articles, but was writing something that helped you through this?
No, not about my journey, and it's amazing. It's been 1.5 years since we've been working on this script, and it was actually because of Corona. The film work had to start. It couldn't start because of this COVID-19 problem. And the lady who is writing my script, she said that out of the screenplay, I'm going to extract and convert it into a novel so that make audio CDs, because she can't wait. But God is great. I think out of all people, the woman I have met, and she is. I never imagined having a friend. You see, my mother was sick and my son was sick. I've lived 90% of my life in isolation. I never had a friend. And this lady, she is, because I had to live my life all over again in the last 1.5 year, and she kind of told me what happened at this stage, and what was the date, and what was the year, and how it happened. Tell me the series of events. I narrated everything again. And so I've lived my
Uh,
life with her, and I've developed such a close bond with her, that, and there is 101% faith between us also, regarding this work. Because as you know, in films and books, there's a lot of sensitivity. There are people who are alive. There are,
yeah.
there are legality, money involved. So the faith is, we have really gone beyond, far beyond that. So but writing, I used to rewrite my son's NCRT book all over again. I've written, it was a very painful journey. It's not easy. So I wrote his books in such a way so that he can understand and by heart those things very easily. So I used to kind of rewrite the entire books, and in that I kind of did my schooling and university education almost twice in my life. And but that helped me to be able to write and to reorganize and reinstate sentences in a more perceptible way. And so that has taught me a lot. So I've written more of factual work. I would like to write
My God.
things, creative writing, but I really don't. There's no time at all. Guys,
Oh God, man.
people
I
in the
can't. I
COVID
mean,
period say we are lonely. I said I'm not lonely. It's the same life I'm living. In fact, I became much more busy because I learned Zoom and all these things of newer generation.
how sweet that just God bless you. I mean, I think again one of the articles written about you, which said that all celebrities are not legends and all legends are not celebrities. And I am so proud of myself for being able to talk to you right now. It's not even funny.
Thank
It's
you,
really,
thank you.
really inspiring, ma'am. It's so inspiring. It's one of the most enriching conversations I've had in the recent time, in spite of all the distance and time. I feel like I mean, I really feel connected to the everything that you're saying, and thank you so much
See,
for that.
that's the
So, okay,
beauty of that. That's the beauty of technology, because in today's world, we have gone back and connected with our schoolmates and college mates who were there like 30, 35 years ago,
yeah,
36 years ago. And then we talk talk to each other, could you have ever imagined that, we have something like what we could imagine, even a mobile phone,
Yeah, yeah.
even a computer. The first time I got a computer was in 1991 or 92, I think. And at that time, we used to have this WordStar and Lotus and basic COBOL and kind of, even the mouse wasn't there, So absolutely virtual world is amazing.
Right.
It's really, yeah.
Right, man. I mean, because of these platforms, we're able to connect and have so many people get inspired at the same time. And I think going forward, it's going to be an even bigger journey where we'll be able to talk about this more and more. I really wish I mean, this could go on as a conversation for such a long time because there's so much that I want to ask. But there is
It
few
happened with
things that
my class today on macronutrients was for 1.5 hours at the most, and it went on for 3 hours.
yeah, yeah.
And the
You-
organizers went to sleep, I think, because at the end I said, "Oh, Better Fitness for You. That's a company who's managing that." And I kept asking, and then I told all the students that I think we should just leave on our own. That they have just slept off. It happened. And even in my
Okay.
magazines, I exceed the word limit, and they tell me 1,000 words, and it comes to 1,500 words. So then we want more of it. It's fine.
Got
Yeah,
it.
we'll
Got it.
have
Because there is so
session.
much value to take from those conversations. I'm sure that you were just telling us about the 3 hour session, and I'm sure they're not going to leave you without their questions being answered even after that.
Yeah, no, at the end, I my email ID, and I told them that I will write to you gradually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh, Ma'am, I want to ask you something that people who I think 1 second we're facing a network issue. Am I audible now? Okay. And there's something that people who are in the chat, something that we opened up the questionnaire to, wanted to ask you. There are people who are right now going through a phase of loneliness and they're feeling down in their lives, and sort of between the age of 25 to 35, some a little more old as well. What would you want to tell them, or what advice would you give them on how to manage their own emotions or increase emotional intelligence in this time?
Okay, there are two, three sides to it. First of all, you need to, of course, in better times, the first thing you need to develop is that you need to learn to live with yourself. You are your own best friend. So if you feel that you're feeling lonely, sad when you're alone, then you're in bad company. So, you need to be able to live with yourself. Secondly, life is very precious, and being alone is the most beautiful thing, actually. And because it is only when you're alone you can think for yourself, you can explore your inner self and fulfill your need for self actualization. So first of all, don't look at being alone as being negative. It's a very positive and happy thing to happen, because you have so much freedom to be yourself, do what you want to. I think it's the height of freedom. I mean, like, it's a wonderful thing. It's just indescribable. You can pursue a few hobbies, or something which you always wanted to do, but that sounds like a cliche. When you're already feeling dejected, you may not like it. And these are the habits which are built when when you're not forced to do something. You otherwise you may be alone all the time, but you have an option. The moment you feel lonely, you can go and change. But now, when you're lonely, you have no choice but to stay. It's a very good idea to have a pet, you know uh, but I agree that it may not be practical for everybody, but I'm sure there's nobody very old, that as old that they may not feel like taking a dog for a walk. But to have a pet, because especially dogs, they have a sense of divine in them, because they are so genuine. They're so real and so faithful, and they have that innocence in them, and they can never go wrong with their love. So it's a very good idea to have a pet. And of course, they can do so much on social media. They can work on themselves. They can exercise, and they know that once this COVID is over, they should be striving to become better in some way. Whether it's building a hobby, or Now we have, like my son is doing online music classes now.
Oh,
We too do, I do Bharatanatyam classes online, but I cannot do it all the time. It doesn't really work. But it's not working for me. But we've done a bit of it, not as well as happens in real. But now I'm doing more of online classes and a lot of writing work and catching up, replanning, rescheduling my life, that what I can do. It's a very good time to introspect. So I would just say that don't look upon this time negatively, make the most of it. And once this time is over, everybody is going to miss this time a lot. They are
yeah,
really going to miss this time, because this is the most precious time in our lives. I think it is, if you really want to reinvent yourself completely and analyze that who is your well-wisher and who is not. And you have time for everything. In normal people say, oh, I don't have time, I want to do this, I don't have time, I want to do that. Now we want to see who did what in these 60 to 90 days. I haven't
right.
stepped out of my house for 90 days, and like I'm damn cool. I'm the happiest person in the world. I'm so happy.
That's really inspiring, man, because a lot of people in isolation have developed sort of a, like you said, tendency to self hate, and a lot, because we see a lot of those conversations from young people, which is very surprising. So I'm hoping that they've heard you, and they'll take away from
No,
this, because
actually,
there is,
whatever happens is it is your own disposition. You are responsible for yourself. Sushant Singh's Rajput's death was very, very unfortunate. But there are people who are living through far, far more unfortunate situations. There are
yeah,
skills that you need to learn when you fail, when there is politics around you, and somewhere down the line, when you're young, the parents have the responsibility to bring about a little spiritual enhancement in every. By spiritual, I don't want to mix it with religion, that you need to do
I get it.
all those ritualistic things, but to connect with your inner self as a human being, and know the value of life, the presence of life. Once it's gone, Sushant Singh Rajput was loved and adored by thousands and thousands of people. He had everybody. But it's kind of a metaphorical death. There is one more person, Mac Cobain. In 1997, he died at the age of 27. He
Right.
committed suicide. And it was like a very, very metaphorical death. When everybody, you need a pursuit in life. When you have too much of everything, then you are overlooking your blessings. And he kind of had so much. He was rich, he was famous, he kind of had so much of everything that he had nothing to look forward to. He had nothing to look forward in life. It has happened
That
with me in so many fields. Believe you me, I've lived my life with psychiatric patients all my life, and I have been isolated and not been accepted as a part of so many societies, that that I'm different, and I'm like, I've always been very unconventional, and on top of that, one of the first women bodybuilders of India. And bodybuilder, oh my God, women bodybuilder,
yeah,
going on with me, living alone, ridiculous. So I have faced this isolation to a next level extreme, and that has taught me to live in isolation very happily. So when nobody wanted me, then I had to befriend myself, and I want to be alive till the end of my life to look after my son. I want to serve my son till the end of my life. So one day my father came and told me that you don't have to look after me. I will look after you, because after I die, I am going to continue to live through you. So I am obliged to you. I am thankful that I got to become a father, and my paternal instincts were satisfied. So as a father, he never told me like most of the Indian fathers do, we have given birth to you, we have brought you up, now look after us. It's not a business deal. It is unconditional love. So as a father, he wanted to take care of me and thank me till he grew older. So he knew I was looking after a special child, and he cooked for me in his last days so that
how
I could
sweet.
look after that child. So that was his greatness. That was unconditional love, and that is why parents are so divine. And if parents are going to tell their children to give them back and serve them back, and they're going to love them only if the children are going to succeed, then my son is not going to succeed. I'm going to help him in all his failures. So you should look at people who are doing such things, and so that makes you feel more grateful, you know. So when you are detaching yourself from the idea of success or getting back something, you are doing unconditional service, unconditional love, and unconditional work. So that gives you a kind of freedom. It gives freedom to the soul. So that helps you through, you know, because I have lived it day to day, every single day of my life, through
Right.
all the decades, you know, it's more than 5 decades. So you must
That's just
learn from it,
wonderful.
and you must learn life skills, you know, instead of getting lonely and seeing the negativity.
Yeah.
There's so much, you know, there's so much to learn in this world. And if not anything else, you have television, you know, it's fine. But just be happy. Just be happy.
Right. Ma'am, unfortunately, it's almost an hour, and Instagram cuts the live session after an hour. But I had at least 5 or 6 other questions. There were so many things that I wanted to ask you, but uh, there is so much I'm taking away from this conversation. Uh, as a friend, I feel I don't know. I just hope that everybody who's heard, because the comment section's been flowing with people asking you for advice. Uh, I wanted you to share some books for spirituality, but very soon again, I'm going to do a post which talks about that, because this is something that just came in. Uh, we have another a minute and a half, so I'd like to thank you for doing this session, and I'm really looking forward to the book and the movie, and
I mean,
connecting after the live to talk about. I'll try to become sort of a medium from everyone in redesign to bring you the questions, and in the meantime get all the benefit of your experiences.
I would
So
love to. You know, my sessions are, you know, that was a paid session. I had charged for that because, of course, that's, you know, that was something I deserve. But you know, I made sure that, you know, they feel. And after that, I got a lot of messages that this is value for money. If somebody has paid me money, I feel very, very responsible. So I really went all out of my
right,
way. And I love to answer questions. You know, it's not money is not the priority, but I love to answer questions. I love to connect, and I'm overwhelmed when people ask me questions because they trust my judgment and my reasoning. So I really
right,
appreciate
ma'am.
that.
We're actually starting something called CraftyNinja.club, which is a membership platform where you choose, say, a limited number of people who pay you per month as a membership. And then you can, give them a certain amount of time, say 15 sessions a month or 5 workshops a month. We're soon launching that, so we'd be excited to have you on that platform, which we're launching in the next 60 days. So we'll let you know about that very soon. So last 30 seconds. But ma'am, thank you so much for doing this session and for inspiring us, and for buying Redesign, because that's where it started. And we're so glad that you liked it. And
Yes, I
we'll see
loved
you
it.
soon, ma'am.
And
So much love.
leave the live session. You know, I would like my son to watch it. So you'll be saving it, I believe.
Yeah, man. We'll be saving it. We'll be posting it on our Redesign's Instagram, and we'll share it with you. I'll share the link. We'll also be doing a post. So, yeah.
Okay, perfect, perfect. Thank you so much,
All
and
right.
thank you,
Thank you so much,
and
ma'am.
thanks to everybody who joined in also.
Yeah, thank you so much, ma'am. I look forward to connecting with you very soon.
Sure. Thank you. Bye bye.
Okay. Bye, guys. Thank you for joining us, and see you on the next episode of Backstage. And stay inspired. Please watch this episode over and over again, and send all your love to Rita, ma'am. And see you guys soon. Okay.
Bye.
Bye.